Hey everybody, Brian Von VA here, setting a bit of a somber tone today. Why? Because we have a set of stories that are guaranteed to be tearjerkers, so get your tissues ready. What's the saddest death you have ever encountered while playing D&D? Part 5. I don't think it was too bad for everyone else at the table, but this tore me up inside. For context, I always get super attached to fictional characters, especially those who I see as could require protection. So mostly those who are young or inexperienced. This isn't just in D&D. However, my current main character, Elf Druid, is a massive self-insert. She has been part of an ongoing campaign for years, and has been instrumental to keeping my depression in check. I don't normally say my character blank, I say I blank. Except when I really need to separate the D&D world from the real one, when talking about how the game has affected me or my character creation. I decided to give her/myself a little sister. This was mostly just flavor text and someone to watch the house and forest. She was a low-level druid and never actively took part in combat rounds, nor was she supposed to. I love roleplay and have a more or less fleshed-out character. I wish I could say the same about the rest of the table. A combination of the above resulting in her not being a boring NPC in my mind, but my sister. I felt responsible for her in and out of game. She was used as a plot hook twice and is now a magic item. The first time was when a gang kidnapped her while I fought a Dracolich, with help from another dragon we found along the way. The gang then sold her to a vampire lord. I annihilated the gang, got a power that was essentially going Super Saiyan, and killed the vampire lord. However, my sister, through trickery and force, was on the final steps of becoming a vampire. I gave up my new ability to try and save her, but it only half worked. The transformation was only mostly reversed. No proper cure has ever been found in our world. After that whole ordeal, she became much more important to me. Her connection with Maliki was shattered, but we were working to fix it. I didn't think the DM would go after her again. I was wrong. A few quests after that, I left home to travel about 10 days away. There were reports of corruption in the forest there, as well as an enslaved village of halflings. My group and I freed them and ventured into the corruption. There we learned of a new evil god, Wrath. Though technically more of a god of destruction, has been trying to pass himself off as a god of nature. He has swayed some druids to his side and away from Maliki, my goddess and the true druidic goddess. One such druid began corrupting the wilderness in this area. We push the druid enough that he flees, and the area goes back to normal after we fight a few more monsters he summoned. However, a massive eye opens in the sky, and meteors rain down in the direction of our hometown. We get back to my house, aka our unofficial base, to find nothing but a crater. Everything I had was gone except what I had brought with me. My sister? Nowhere to be found. There are reports of a trinket in the area that turns into a spectral unicorn and flies away when approached. The traitor druid has been seen chasing it. I figured this would be an item for me since unicorns are the symbol of Maliki, and no one else in the group is religious. Sorry if I keep pronouncing that name incorrectly. Later, we hunt down and fight the traitor druid, but bad rolls almost resulted in a TPK. Then a voice rings out. "I will not beseech thee, sister." What the DM meant to say was more along the lines of, "forsake thee." But everyone makes mistakes. A spectral unicorn flies in and impales the traitor druid with her horn. A short conversation follows where I learn that the unicorn is my sister. Wrath had killed her, but her desire to stay with me was strong enough that Maliki allowed her to still aid me. This would be the last time we could talk. She remains with me as a necklace I can use to summon a spectral unicorn for a single charge attack that deals 1d12 times 3 damage if it hits, with a decent chance of hitting 3 times a day. I would rather have my sister alive and well though. I'm so sorry, Ayana. I'll never forget you. I'm going to kill Wrath. In-game, this wasn't very long ago. I don't tell anyone that I do since I know they probably won't care, but I take out the pendant every night and grieve a little. Her memory helps ensure that I will never, ever be swayed by Wrath, even for a moment. And it's not like I could easily get over failing her like that twice as a character or a player. I've started to hate being the only player with easily available plot hooks. At least, there aren't any left that tug on my heart, I think. So, in a recent campaign our group played, in which the big bad evil guy, this was caused by a split personality, was one of our party members, which, of course, no one else except the DM and the player knew. After almost a full school year of D&D as this party and campaign, that had our characters travel through centuries using time travel. When it finally came down to it, our Oathbreaker Paladin turned into Oath of Redemption and was forced in an effort to try and save our party member by incapacitating them using a necrotic charged divine smite given to him from a special weapon, only have unspent use of the Fate card from the deck of many things, enable that party member to kill themselves with a sacrificial dagger and forcing us to replace all memories of them with a DM NPC that had died in the fight as well. My personal saddest death is my Yuan-Ti Pureblood Warlock, my group of a Goliath Barbarian, Kenku Rogue, Furbolg Druid, and myself. We were fighting through a field of monsters being unleashed by a cult in order to try and take over the country. We managed to fight our way through all but the final bunch, a group of manticores. We were all battered and bruised, out of spell slots, and on death's door. My Yuan-Ti Warlock, having almost died twice already and dealt with extreme racism and rudeness from the lower class because he was seen as a royal, decided that he would make an example that not all royals are pompous jerks. So he took a satchel full of vials of green dragon fire and rode into the group of manticores, firing agonizing eldritch blasts into the beasts and luring them all as close to him as he could before setting off every single vial in the satchel, which held like 50 to 60 vials, all at once, blowing a massive crater into the field, along with vaporizing himself and the weakened manticores. His final words to the party were, "Make sure they know what I've done," as well as personal advice and thanks to the group, followed by his last ever words, "May we meet in the next life, dear friends." The party was level 7 at the time. They were defending a farming town from an orc invasion led by a powerful and clever war chief. After the initial invasion, the party was pretty haggard, so they made a plan to have the druid make a tunnel out. A few minutes after they started their plan, they heard the war horns go off, and the ranger saw the banners following a large orc riding a rhino on his way to the gate. The fighter told the rest to get out, that he would buy time, but the paladin said they should fight. This is when the fighter sucker punched him, knocking him out, giving him to the bard and ranger, telling them to live another day. The fighter then sat right outside the front gate and made some tea. It was always his favorite. The large orc and his war leaders rode up with him. The orc riders asked the chief to kill him for him, but he waved them off, asking if this was the town surrendering. The fight invited him to join him for a cup, to which the war chief accepted, asking him why he fights for these weak people. Someone of his quality would easily have a place in his war band. The fighter told him, "We aren't defined by our power, but what we choose to do with it." The war chief told him he couldn't win this fight, to which the fighter responded, "I know." The fighter readied himself, and after a few rounds, the fighter was ready to die. But during the fight, the fighter told me he wanted to attack the orc's weapon and not him. So with his final strike, the fighter broke the war chief's spear, a symbol of Groomish. The orc raged and skewered him with his clawed hand. I asked the fighter if there was anything he would like to do as his life slipped away. "Yeah, there is one thing. I would like to grab the war chief's ankle." A look of surprise went across the table, so I let him do it. The war chief looked down at him in disgust, but the fighter simply said, "I can't let you go yet," before getting his head crushed in. When the war band invaded the town, it was completely empty, much to their confusion. He didn't die valiantly or with honor, but he died a hero. A few months ago in December, I DM'd a one-shot for two of my friends that was a murder mystery set in New York, 1927, at a Christmas party on Christmas Eve in a hotel. The two players met each other at the party as fellow philanthropists, mingling with flapper girls and other rich people in the party. The host for the Christmas party, Henry Callahan, who I based off of Andrew Carnegie, was a titan in the railroad business and a millionaire. The players were still socializing until a big crowd crowded against the door gossiping. And when the crowd cleared, there was a famous Broadway performer, Al Jolson, walking through the door. I am a student of both history and musical theater. He then proudly proclaimed that he was the world's greatest entertainer, and Callahan shrugged him off, which upset Jocelyn. The players initially thought nothing of it until the lights went out and they heard an ouch, and then a stabbing sound from the center of the room. Once the lights were back on, they were surprised to see that the host was on his back, dead with a fatal stab wound to his neck. The police chief, who was at the party, demanded that no one be let in or out and called for volunteers for a pseudo-investigation. The players took the plot hook and they went around the hotel questioning people to no avail. The players got to talk to the jazz band in the hotel, where they met a teenage clarinet player, which they began talking with, and they seemed to be hitting it off by cracking jokes, even though there was a pressing matter at hand. The police chief beckoned for them to interrogate two old men sitting opposite of each other. These two old men were in fact Civil War veterans, one Union and one Confederate. As the players began to try to talk to them, the Confederate veteran stood up and said, "He did it!" And the Union veteran did the same. An argument began that the players were trying to dissolve, but their efforts failed once the veterans pulled Civil War-era revolvers on each other. The police chief intervened to try and take one of their guns, but the Confederate veteran pushed him aside and screamed, "Billy Yank!" And the Union veteran screamed, "Johnny Reb!" And they began shooting at each other. The players and subsequently the whole party ducked for cover as the shootout between two 80-year-olds and eventually the Union veteran ran out of rounds in his pistol. So the police chief got up and drew his M1911 on the Confederate veteran. Unbeknownst to him, he still had a single round in his gun. After the police chief screamed to drop it, the Confederate veteran waved it around and said, "This here ain't nothing but a toy." When he finished that, he accidentally fired into the crowd, which he hit the clarinet player that the players were chatting up. They rushed to her side, trying to stop the bleeding, which was coming from her neck. Since one of the players' characters was a World War I veteran, I gave him an advantage on trying to help save the musician. Both times, he rolled low. So the players watched as their newfound friend slipped away in their arms. The flabbergasted Confederate veteran dropped his gun and sat back down, muttering, "Oh my God, oh my God." The players, not wanting their friend to die in vain, continued the investigation, where they eventually went up to Callahan's room, where they saw blood and cosmetics everywhere, along with Callahan's strangled wife. They went back down to the lobby where the police chief was grilling Al Jolson with questions on what happened after finding that Jocelyn had used makeup to cover up the blood on his hands. The players and the police chief, with a massive hunch that was Jocelyn, fought Jocelyn to bring under arrest. But Jocelyn got up and took the police chief's gun and proceeded to not shoot it, but use it as a crude brass knuckles and beat the police chief's face in. The players eventually got subdued. Jocelyn and the authorities conveniently arrived at that moment to take Jocelyn and the two bodies away. As the party was obviously coming to a close, the police chief and the players walked outside where they could see the sun rising. Another cop passing by said, "Sir, it's Christmas morning." And the police chief said, "Oh, yeah." And in his beaten delirium, got up on the police cruiser and proclaimed to the crowd, "Merry fucking Christmas." And that's where it ended. Hey everybody, Brian Von VA here, back at it again to check in after the vid. I hope everybody's doing okay. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and to ring that bell so you can get notified whenever we post or go live. If you have a story you'd like to submit to us, please do so on the subreddit r/MrRipper, and make sure to follow us on Twitter and Twitch. Links are going to be in the description below. Using a help action, you can come subscribe to me, Brian Von VA, on YouTube, where I stream games and do your voice acting memes, as well as D&D characters too. With that said, I always try to end on a positive, and I wanted to say, I just hope that everybody out there follows their dreams. I know sometimes it can be kind of scary, it can be kind of hard, but at the same time, it's a very important thing to follow your dreams no matter what happens. Yes, you're going to make some tough decisions. Yes, you're going to have some bad situations, but you know what? At the end of it, it's all about love. It's about finding what makes you happy and not worrying about the consequences. As long as you're a good person, it doesn't matter, so keep on fighting. All the love. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.